Shavua Tov, a good tevoch. We'll tell tonight story number 13 of the Shivchei of Shem Tov. Now, the title, the Shabbat of the Baal Shem Tov's revelation, is a shorthand. The title in Hebrew is actually Shabbat b'mechitzat haBaal Shem Tov samoch leitgaluto, the Shabbat of the divisive line of the Baal Shem Tov close to his revelation. What does this mean? We're almost at the point where the Baal Shem Tov is going to reveal himself. It actually happens at the end of this given Shabbat tell in the story. So let's go for it. The Baal Shem Tov is still in this town, close to Brody, and next to his house, he has what they call the house of seclusion. And in that place, he meditates and he learns the depths of the secrets of the Torah, and he perfects himself spiritually, and he spends the whole day there, the whole week. But Shabbos, he comes home, and they have guests, and so far no one knows that the Baal Shem Tov is a hidden tzaddik. As the time of the revelation, the Idgalut, the revelation of the Baal Shem Tov as a tzaddik, is drawing near, it happens that one of the Talmidim, one of the students of Modeinu Rav Gershon of Kitov, was going to his Rav, to Kitov, and he stopped on the way on a Tuesday, and he was a guest at the Baal Shem Tov's house, and he ate, and he was received there with great honor. And after dinner, he said to the Baal Shem Tov, not knowing, of course, that he is the Baal Shem Tov, he calls him by his first name, and he says, Israel, prepare the horses so I can go immediately. And so the Baal Shem Tov did, went and tied the horses to the man's wagon, and they're ready to go. The man is ready to go, and the Baal Shem Tov comes and tells him, Sir, maybe you will spend Shabbos here. The man took it as a joke, and he laughed, because he was on his way on Tuesday to his Rav. Why should he stay Shabbat here? He didn't go about half a parsa, 3/4 of a mile, and one of the wheels of the cart, of the wagon, broke. So he had to turn back and have people help him, fix it. And then he goes again into the way, and something else breaks, and he again needs to make a repair. And to make a long story short, basically he cannot go on this Tuesday. He has to go back to stay at the Baal Shem Tov's house in this village. And so something happens on Wednesday, and on Thursday, and on Friday, until the man understands, he is going to have to spend Shabbos, in that little town, and he is quite sad. He's suffering because he has to stay Shabbos in a place of these villagers, of ignorant people, not in the city of Brody with a big Talmid Chachamim, with his Rav Gershon. And he sees that the Baal Shem Tov's wife, Rav Gershon's sister, is baking 12 loaves of challah. He's very surprised, and he asked her, why are you baking 12 loaves of challah? There is a deep Kabbalistic minhag custom about it, but of course, only those who are really in know of the secrets of Kabbalah would do such a practice. So she says, well, even though my husband is an Ama Aretz, is a common, ignoramus, why does that matter? He's a kosher man, he's a correct man, he's a religious Jew. And I have seen them in the house of my brother. My brother makes kiddush in front of 12 loaves of challah covered. So I do the same for my husband. As the man wants to get ready for Shabbat, for Shabbos, he asks if they have a place to bathe or to shower. And she says, of course we have. We also have a Beit Tevila, a house of mikveh for men. And he says, why do you need a mikveh for men in this little town? Again, she says, my husband is a kosher man, he's a pious Jew, and he goes to mikveh every day. Not yet grasping what's going on,
he still feels very sad that he has to spend Shabbos in this little town instead of being in the city of Brody with his Rav. So it was the time for davening, for praying mincha. And he asked her, "Where is your husband?" And she still says, "There, in the field, with the sheep, with the animals." So he davens, he prays mincha by himself. And as sundown draws near, he's like, "What do I do now?" So he takes the siddur again, and he davens, he prays Kabbalat Shabbat by himself. And then Arvit, the whole Friday evening prayer. And the Baal Shem Tov was still delaying because he was in the basis Bodidus, in the house of seclusion, deeply in his kavanos, doing his special prayers. Of course, this was not yet revealed to him. By the way, there is a place in a town near the city of Brody where it is said that the Baal Shem Tov lived in that place, and the traditional place of this basis Bodidus, of this house of seclusion, is in a cave that was near the house. So it wasn't a special building, it was like a cave, not very deep, grout, where the Baal Shem Tov would go and do this special learning in that place. So when the Baal Shem Tov actually comes home and he changes into clothing, he changes his manners and his way of speech, still hiding as tzaddik nistra, hidden tzaddik, not yet revealed, he looks at the man and he greets him, Shabbat Taba. In Yiddish you would say Good Shabbos. In Hebrew you would say Shabbat Shalom. But Shabbat Taba is in Aramaic from the Talmud, which is obviously only a language that somebody who learns the Talmud Chacham, would know. And so the man doesn't yet grasp what's going on. And he says, the Baal Shem Tov says to the guest, "I told you that you would stay here for Shabbos, for Shabbat with us," and so it was. The Baal Shem Tov stood in front of the west wall of the room and pretended to be praying, to show it off to the man that he actually is praying. He, of course, had already done his actual praying in the basis Bodidus, in the house of seclusion. After this, the Baal Shem Tov knew himself that if he makes Kiddush the way he usually does in front of this man, he is going to see his deveikus and his kavanos and the way he does it, and he's immediately going to figure things out. So the Baal Shem Tov invites the guest to do Kiddush for the house. So he does it, and he sits next to his wife the way the peasants of the town did, not the way the Talmidei Chachamim sit in one place and the wife in another. So he's still hiding, still showing like... At the table, the Baal Shem Tov asked the guest, "Rabbi, please give us some words of Torah." And that week they were reading the Parsha of Shemot. So he tells in a very simple manner the story of the exile from Mitzrayim, from Egypt, the captivity at the hands of the Pharaoh, and that's it. After the meal, they offer the guest a bed next to the table, and the Baal Shem Tov goes to sleep with his wife. At midnight, the man wakes up, and he sees this tremendous light coming from the stove where they were, they had the food on the blech cover up for to be cooked for Shabbos. And he's afraid that there is a fire in the kitchen, so he runs there. There is no fire, but there is this light, this bright light. And he feels that he's been pushed from behind, and he faints. They wake him up, they bring him back, and the Baal Shem Tov tells him, "You should not have been looking where you are not allowed to." And the man is marveled. He just saw a wonder, something that he cannot understand. Well, next morning, the Baal Shem Tov goes to do his prayers in the basis Bodidus, in the house of seclusion, as he always did. And when he comes home, he's very happy. His head is held up. And when he comes in the house, he walks pacing from one side to another, and he's singing a Sadarle Sudasa, Asader li sudasa betzafra de Shabbat avas mimboashto atiko kadishom. Then he makes Kiddush Rabbah, big Kiddush Shabbos morning, following his custom, the way he Shem Tov does, with all his deveikus, his special concentration and his devotion to Hashem and attaching himself to holiness. When they sit at the table, the man asked, the Baal Shem Tov asked the guest to give him the Divrei Torah, and now the man is a bit confused. Last night he thought Baal Shem Tov is an ignoramus, he's a peasant, let me talk to him like I talk to a child, but now he's confused. So he gives a maimor, a word of Torah, and he gives his pshat, his simple explanation, at a different level. And the Baal Shem Tov says, oh, I heard that maimor, and a different explanation to it. Then the Baal Shem Tov, after the meal, he goes again to his basis bodhus, the house of seclusion, and he learns. And after mincha prayers, Shabbat afternoon, he comes back in a complete stage of idgalut, of revelation. Now there is no more spiritual covers, and there is no more games of pretension. He is open into a revealed tzaddik. He sits at the table for Shalishidus, that's the third meal of Shabbos. He gives Divrei Torah with Razim Deoraita, with secrets of Torah. They were so deep that no human ear had ever heard them. They pray Ma'ariv, the evening prayer, and the Baal Shem Tov did Havdalah with all his kavanos, in all his deveikus, all his attachment to Hashem. And now, to this man, there is no more secret. Now he sees what the Baal Shem Tov is. The Baal Shem Tov gives him a gzar, a decree. He says, you are going to Rav Gershon, go. You will get there now. But you are not to tell him anything of what you saw here. But when you arrive to the city of Brody, you will go to the Rav of the Kehila, that man which we mentioned in the story before, and you also will go to a group called the Hasidim Gedolim, the great Hasidim of the city, and to them you're going to tell these words. You tell them that there is an Or Gadol, a great light, a luminary, near their community, and it would be good if they go and bring him over to the city. When the Hasidim Gedolim hear this, they know this is Rabbi Israel ben Eliezer, the Baal Shem Tov. And now they understand everything they saw and they heard about him. And now everything is clear, straight. So they all go toward the village to meet this tzaddik. And the Baal Shem Tov foresees that this is happening, and he comes out to greet them. So they meet in the middle of the path, of the way between the village and the city of Brody, and they go down into the forest, and they bring branches of the trees, and they build a throne, a special chair for the tzaddik from the branches of the trees, and they invite him to sit there, and they made him their Rav openly. He's now the Rav of the Hasidim Gedolim. And the Baal Shem Tov sits in front of them, and he talks Divrei Torah, words of Torah. And so is the story. The first publisher of the Shivchei, Baal Shem Tov, added 2 lines. He says, up to here, I heard from the Admor, from the Alter Rebbe, whose neshama is really in Gan Eden, meaning this is 2 years after the Baal Shem Tov passed away, when he's publishing the book. And he says, this is the order, the Seder Shalshilus, the order of all the stories, the first 13 stories, as the Alter Rebbe told me I should. Now, the rest of the stories and the prodigies and the wonders that happen about the Baal Shem Tov, from now on I will follow the writings that came to my hand, the writings of Rav Dover of Linitz, whose story I already refer in the story of these stories of the Baal Shem Tov. I will put the link on the description. Please give the story a like, share it, tell your friends, tell Baal Shem Tov stories, subscribe, come over to the Patreon, I will put the link too, and you can read my notes and all the stories. and a generous donation for my efforts putting together the translation of these stories, and I'm working on the written translation of these stories in book form into Spanish. All donations will be appreciated for that. Come again next week. Shavua Tov, a good Tevoch.